Hey, what's going on, my friends? Misha Wilson here, and in today's video, I want to take a few minutes and talk about how you have been scammed by the education system, and essentially the cycle that it reinforces and the cycle that you have to break out of if you want to achieve success as an entrepreneur. So as always, if this is your first video, my name is Misha Wilson, and over the course of the last few years, I've now done over $40 million in total sales online, worked with tens of thousands of students. And so everything I'm going to teach you here today in this video is not taught to you based out of theory, but based on, once again, working with thousands of people from everywhere in the world. As always, if you get value out of this video, please let me know in the comments section below what your biggest takeaway is. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button and that thumbs up button if you do. With that said, let's go ahead and dive right in. Welcome to the Misha Wilson Show, where we show you how to create massive success online so you can enjoy the lifestyle of your wildest dreams. All right, so what I want to talk about here today is something that, is near and dear to my heart, working with so many people and helping people to create success online in their journey, which, part of the challenge in that process is having them essentially kind of break free from the paradigms, the habits, and the behaviors that have kept them from having success so far. And that's kind of what I want to talk about here today. So recently I was working with a client, and awesome, super smart individual, was, really excited to get started with our coaching program, got started with our coaching program. And what I noticed very quickly about this person, they're very good at getting through information, very good at learning, very good at, once again, retaining information. And they were just in massive action mode when it comes to going through our course. And I got on our welcome call. That person had already been through quite a bit of the content. After the welcome call, that person continued to go through quite a bit of the content. And before we knew it, that person had completed the entire roadmap, all right? So we have a roadmap for our mentorship students, and that person had completed the entire roadmap and wasn't seeing the results that person wanted to see, right? And so we ended up hopping on a call, and I kind of diagnosed and looked at what they were doing, what they had gone through, etc. And long story short, what had ended up happening is that this person had gone through a ton of content. This person had raced through the entire roadmap, all of the content. And when I asked this person, look, that's awesome, you went through the content, but what have you actually done at this point in time? What action steps have you taken? What have you executed upon? At that point in the conversation, there were some crickets, right? At that point in the conversation, there was a realization on the person's part that, holy crap, I've been going through all this content. I've been learning. I've been, just massive action learning, but I haven't actually done anything. And with this individual, we've been kind of, essentially fighting that same battle a couple of different times, where they've gone through again the first time, then the second time, they started to do the same thing. We kind of had to hit the brakes and tell them to stop and then start executing again. And again, the tendency is there to just start going through content. And what's interesting about this individual is that this individual is a highly educated individual. This person has all types of degrees from traditional education. And this person has been through that full system, the traditional education system, inside and out, yet is still kind of struggling with this issue. And when it comes down to it, I would actually argue that this person is struggling with this issue more than other people because they're so successful with the traditional education system. All right. And so if you look at what you have to do to be an entrepreneur, is you have to find a market, you have to find a problem in that market, you have to find a product that solves the problem in the market, you need to learn how to market it, you need to, if you don't have the product, create the product or find the product, you have to, in learning how to market it, execute on the actual things that you do. You then have to fulfill on the product, you have to set up all the infrastructure for fulfilling on the product. And when I'm kind of going through all this stuff, that's just, again, the first steps you have to do. Then you have to learn how to build a team, create a culture, build a sales team if you have a sales division. There's 1,000 different things you have to keyword do. All right. As an entrepreneur, you are always doing, you are always executing, you are always in action, and you are always focusing on taking the next step and taking the next action step. Where if you look at the traditional education system, what happens? All right, there's two things that it completely screws you up with. Firstly, right, all you're doing is going through content. Read a book, read this next book, read this next textbook, learn about history. I'm not saying you shouldn't learn about history, but learn about this history that is not going to affect you when it comes to success in your life or not. And then let's sit down, let's take a test on how well you retain that information, right? So it's just constantly learning. Every now and then they'll have you do something, but 98% of the time, it's just learning. So you get in that pattern, like I was just talking about, of, just being kind of having the tendency of just wanting to learn, continue to learn, even when you are quote unquote learned out. All right. Now, I'm not a believer in, stopping your education. I think you should always continue your education. But what you want to do is you want to be very cognizant of learning something, then executing it. Learning something, then executing it. As a beginner entrepreneur, this is what you do. Learn something, execute it. What I tell all of my students is usually at the very beginning, you are going to be learning something and executing, maybe 50-50. But then once you get to a point where you have a 7-figure, multiple 7, 8-figure business, etc., you'll get to a point where it's like 80 or 90% doing, 10 to 20% learning. All right. So every single day it is execution, right? I'm not spending time right now to learn how to record a YouTube video. I'm just recording the YouTube video. And then from there, 10, 20% of the time, I'll probably spend some time figuring out how to optimize these videos, keywords, rankings, etc. But most all of the time, I'm just focused on executing. All right. And that's the first way the traditional education system completely scams you. It sets you up for failure based on the fact that it rewards you for just learning and not actually executing, doing. Now, the second thing that it does that is so detrimental to entrepreneurs is that when you take that test, right? Firstly, you've just learned a bunch of shit. You haven't actually done anything. You haven't actually executed. You haven't actually fucking, executed on one single thing. Then you take that test, and if you don't get every single answer right, which, let's be completely honest, doesn't actually matter in the scheme of things, right? No one gives a shit about your test results anymore in today's world from the traditional education system. No one hires based on that. And if you're an entrepreneur, it even matters less. But if you don't get every question just right, it tells you that you are a failure. All right, you get an F or you get a C, right? If you wanted to get an A or a B, a C is then a failure. And when you get too many bad grades, they literally deem you as a failure, right? You failed this grade, you failed this class, you failed this fill in the blank, which reinforces the identity of A, you are a failure, and B, teaches you that failing is a bad thing. All right. And if you've been watching me for any period of time, the truth of the matter is that if you want to be a successful entrepreneur, if you want to grow a 6-figure, multiple 6-figure, 7-figure, 8-figure business, the bigger you want your business to be, the more failing you are going to do, the more okay with failing you have to be, but you have to frame it as, instead of failure, just very simply a feedback mechanism, a feedback loop, and essentially just data for you to look at. All right, I did this thing, worked really well. I did this thing, did not work really well. Let's change this. Let's adjust this. Let's use the feedback loop that we have here to do it better next time. And then from there, continue. Because I guarantee you, every single successful person that you're looking at, they fail, they mess up, they screw up, they fuck up. But at the end of the day, they don't let those things stop them. And so again, remember, if you want to be successful as an entrepreneur, firstly, take action. All right. At the very beginning, it might be 50-50. Work on getting to 75-25, 75% action, 25% learning, 80% action, 20% learning, 90% action, 10% learning, etc. And then secondly, do not look at failure as a bad thing, as a negative thing. Don't even label it failure. The label becomes the experience, right? Label it as something that is very simply a feedback mechanism and a feedback loop and an opportunity for you to improve. Take that feedback, improve upon what you're doing, do it right the next time, and ultimately have success. So with that said, I hope you got a ton of value out of today's video. If you did, please let me know in the comments section below what your biggest takeaway was. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and that thumbs up button below this video.